A millionaire bursts into the hospital, sees his ex giving birth to twins, and the truth stops his heart. Hi, my dearest and most cherished family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Today, I humbly thank you, 26,000 hearts strong. You've taken me this far, and I promise I will never take your love for granted. To all our new members, don't rush away. Watch the full story. Just once, trust this family. Let the emotion reach your heart, and you'll understand why so many never leave. And to my loyal family, please tell them in the comments what this journey means to you. Let them feel the warmth you've given me for so long. Your likes and comments aren't just numbers. They're the breath that keeps this storytelling soul alive. Don't wait to be asked. If your heart is still with me, comment proudly, "I am here." I promise you, Chapter 10 will be unforgettable. You've seen endings before, but nothing like the one I've written for you. And here is my prayer for you. May your soul be wrapped in peace, your home in love, and may you always feel the value you hold in this world. This is more than a channel. It's a family. Say it from the heart. I am here. The October rain hammered against the windows of Phoenix Maverick's black Lamborghini as he sped through the streets of downtown Seattle. His heart pounded with worry as he gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white against the Italian leather. Marcus had called him 20 minutes ago, his voice shaking with panic. "Eleanor's water broke early. Something's wrong. We're at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. Phoenix, I need you here." Phoenix had dropped everything. Board meetings, million-dollar deals, investor calls. None of it mattered when his best friend and business partner needed him. Marcus and Eleanor had been trying for a baby for 5 years, and this pregnancy was their miracle after countless failed attempts and heartbreak. The hospital's imposing glass facade loomed before him as he pulled into the emergency parking area. Phoenix didn't care about the no parking signs or the potential ticket. He grabbed his coat and ran through the rain toward the entrance, his expensive Italian shoes splashing through puddles without a second thought. The sterile white corridors of St. Catherine's Children's Hospital buzzed with activity. Nurses, in colorful scrubs, moved with practiced efficiency, their soft-soled shoes squeaking against the polished floors. The scent of disinfectant mingled with something else, something warmer, more comforting. Phoenix followed the signs toward the maternity ward, his long strides eating up the distance as he searched for room numbers. "Phoenix!" Marcus's voice called from down the hallway. Phoenix turned to see his friend emerging from a room marked Labor and Delivery Suite 3, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. His dark hair stuck up at odd angles, his shirt was wrinkled, and his eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and fear. "How is she?" Phoenix asked, immediately pulling Marcus into a fierce embrace. They'd been friends since college, built their tech empire together from nothing, and Phoenix had never seen Marcus this terrified. "Complications," Marcus whispered against Phoenix's shoulder. "The baby's breech and Elena's blood pressure is dangerously high. They might need to do an emergency C-section." His voice cracked on the last words. Phoenix pulled back, gripping Marcus's shoulders firmly. "Elena is strong. Your baby is strong. The doctors here are the best in the state. Everything is going to be perfect." A soft melody drifted through the air, barely audible above the hospital's ambient noise. Phoenix's head turned instinctively toward the sound, his entire body freezing as recognition hit him like a physical blow. That melody. He knew that melody. More than that, he knew the way it was being played. The delicate vibrato, the passionate phrasing, the way certain notes were held just a fraction longer than written. "What is that music?" Phoenix asked, his voice strangely hoarse. Marcus looked confused. "Music? Oh, that's the music therapy program. They have someone who plays for the babies in the NICU. It's supposed to help with their development and healing." "Why? Phoenix's heart began to race for an entirely different reason. His hands started to tremble as the melody continued, weaving through the air like a ghost from his past. I need to check something. Can you give me a few minutes? Before Marcus could respond, Phoenix was already walking away, following. The sound like a man in a trance. The melody grew stronger as he moved through the corridors, past the regular maternity rooms, and toward a section marked Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. The music was coming from behind glass doors, marked Music Therapy Room. Quiet, please. Phoenix approached slowly, his heart thundering so loudly he was certain everyone in the hospital could hear it. Through the large observation window, he could see inside the softly lit room. A woman sat in a rocking chair, her back partially turned toward the window. Long auburn hair cascaded over her shoulders like liquid fire, catching the warm light. From the carefully positioned lamps, she held a violin with the same reverence and grace that Phoenix remembered from 1,000 dreams. But it was what she held against her chest that made his world stop spinning entirely. 2 tiny babies, swaddled in soft blankets, rested against her chest as she played. The infants couldn't be more than a few days old, their faces peaceful and content as the music washed over them. Even from his position behind the glass, Phoenix could see the distinctive features that made his breath catch in his throat. Dark hair, his dark hair. Strong, defined jawlines that mirrored his own. And when one of the babies opened their eyes, Phoenix saw the familiar deep brown that looked back at him from every mirror. His children. His and Willow's children. The woman, Willow, continued, playing, completely unaware of his presence. Her face was serene, maternal, beautiful in a way that made Phoenix's chest ache with longing and regret. She looked older, more mature than when he'd last seen her 6 years ago, but she was still the most beautiful woman he'd ever known. 6 years. 6 years since she'd vanished from his life without explanation, leaving only a note that said she needed to find herself and that loving him was too complicated. 6 years of wondering what he'd done wrong, of searching for her, of comparing every woman he met to the memory of her laugh. And now, here she was, holding their children, children he'd never known existed. The violin piece came to an end, and Willow gently placed the instrument in a nearby stand. She adjusted the babies in her arms, whispering something too soft for Phoenix to hear through the glass. One of the infants, a girl based on the pink blanket, made a small cooing sound, and Willow smiled with such pure love that Phoenix felt tears sting his eyes. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" Phoenix spun around to find a middle-aged nurse, standing behind him, her kind eyes warm with understanding. "I'm sorry," Phoenix managed to croak. "The babies," the nurse said, nodding toward the window. "Sophia and Gabriel Sterling, born 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks premature. Their mama's been here every day since they arrived, playing for them and the other babies. Music therapy does wonders for premature infants, helps with brain development, reduces stress, even improves their heart rate and breathing." "Sterling?" Phoenix repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Their mother, Willow Sterling. She's one of our volunteer music therapists. Amazing woman. She's a professional violinist, you know. Used to perform with the Seattle Symphony before." The nurse trailed off, seeming to realize she was sharing too much personal information. "Before what?" Phoenix pressed. The nurse hesitated, then seemed to decide that general information wasn't confidential. "Before she had to step back for health reasons. She's been working part-time as a music teacher and volunteering here. Those babies are her whole world." Phoenix's mind reeled. Sterling. She'd changed her name. Professional violinist. That had always been her dream, and she'd achieved it. But she'd given it up, and he had a terrible feeling he knew why. Through the glass, Willow stood carefully, supporting both babies against her chest. She moved with the practiced grace of a new mother, and Phoenix realized these were indeed very young infants. The timeline clicked into place with devastating clarity. "When were they born?" he asked the nurse. "September 23rd. Premature rupture of membranes, and she has a heart condition that made everything more complicated. Touch and go for the first week, but look at them now, growing stronger every day. September 23rd, Phoenix calculated quickly. If they were born 6 weeks early, full term would have been early November, conceived in February. 6 years and 7 months ago, the night before Willow disappeared. As if sensing his presence, Willow turned toward the window. The moment their eyes met through the glass, her face went completely white. The baby stirred in her arms as her body tensed, and Phoenix saw her lips form his name in a silent whisper. Time seemed suspended as they stared at each other through the barrier of glass, and 6 years of separation. Phoenix saw shock, fear, and something else. Something that looked like the love he'd never stopped feeling for her. Then Willow was moving, quickly but carefully placing the babies in nearby cribs before rushing toward the door. Chapter 2. The Weight of Secrets. The music therapy room door opened with a soft whoosh, and suddenly Willow Grace Sterling stood before Phoenix, separated by only 3 feet of space that felt like an ocean. She was even more beautiful than his memories had painted her. Those emerald eyes still capable of stealing his breath, her auburn hair longer now and pulled back in a simple ponytail that somehow made her look both maternal and ethereal. "Phoenix," she whispered, her voice carrying the same musical quality that had haunted his dreams for 6 years. Her hands trembled at her sides, and he could see the rapid rise and fall of her chest as she tried to control her breathing. "Hello, Willow." His voice came out rougher than he intended, 6 years of buried emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Or should I say, Willow Sterling? She flinched at the name, her cheeks flushing pink. "You can't be here. You need to leave." "Those babies in there?" Phoenix said quietly, his dark eyes searching her face. "Sophia and Gabriel, they're mine, aren't they?" The color drained from Willow's face completely. She swayed slightly, and Phoenix instinctively stepped forward to steady her, his hands grasping her upper arms. The moment his skin touched hers, electricity shot between them, the same overwhelming connection that had defined their relationship from the very first moment they'd met. "Don't," she whispered, but she didn't pull away from his touch. "Please don't do this." "Don't do what? Don't ask about my children? Don't demand to know why the woman I loved more than my own life disappeared without a trace while carrying my babies?" Phoenix's voice broke on the last words, and he saw tears spring to Willow's eyes. "You don't understand," she said, her voice barely audible. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me," Phoenix pleaded. "Help me understand why you left. Help me understand why I've spent 6 years feeling like half of my soul was missing, only to discover that you were raising our children alone." Through the glass window, baby Gabriel began to fuss, his tiny cries piercing the air. Willow immediately pulled away from Phoenix's touch, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. "I have to go to them," she said, already moving toward the door. "I'm coming with you," Phoenix stated, following her into the room. The space was designed for comfort and healing. Soft, warm lighting created a golden glow, and the walls were painted in soothing pastels with hand-painted murals of trees, flowers, and musical notes. Several comfortable chairs and a rocking chair were positioned near state-of-the-art medical cribs designed for premature infants. Willow went immediately to Gabriel, lifting him with practiced ease and cradling him against her chest. The baby's cries quieted instantly at his mother's touch, and he nuzzled against her neck with the trust of a child who knew he was completely safe and loved. Phoenix moved to Sophia's crib, his large hands hovering uncertainly over his daughter. She was awake, her dark brown eyes, his eyes, tracking his movement with the alert curiosity of an intelligent baby. "Can I—" he started to ask, then stopped, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. Willow looked at him, holding their daughter's gaze, and her expression softened fractionally. "Support her head and neck. She's stronger than she looks, but she was so small when she was born." With infinite care, Phoenix lifted Sophia into his arms. She was tiny, probably still underweight from her premature birth, but she felt solid and real and perfect. When she wrapped her little fingers around his thumb, Phoenix thought his heart might actually stop beating. "She has your eyes," Willow said softly, watching them together. "She has your stubborn chin," Phoenix replied, and despite everything, Willow almost smiled. They stood there in the soft light, each holding a baby, the weight of unspoken words, filling the space between them. Gabriel had fallen asleep against Willow's shoulder, and Sophia was studying Phoenix's face with serious concentration. "Why didn't you tell me?" Phoenix finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Willow closed her eyes, a single tear escaping down her cheek. "Because I heard you with Victoria that night." Phoenix's blood ran cold. "What?" "The night before, I left. I came to your apartment to tell you about the pregnancy. I was so scared, but also so excited. I thought maybe you'd be happy. Maybe we'd figure it out together." Willow's voice grew stronger, as if telling the story was releasing poison from her system. "But when I got there, Victoria was already inside." Phoenix remembered. That night with crystal clarity. His ex-fiancée had shown up unannounced, desperate and crying, begging him to take her back. She'd claimed to be pregnant, though he'd later discovered it was a lie, just another manipulation in a long line of them. "I heard her telling you she was pregnant." Chapter 3. Love Never Dies. 1 week later, Phoenix hadn't left the hospital. He'd sent his assistant to bring clothes and toiletries, rearranged every meeting, and postponed 2 major acquisitions. Nothing mattered except being here, learning everything he could about his children and slowly rebuilding trust with Willow. The private room he'd secured was more like a hotel suite than a medical facility. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seattle skyline. Comfortable furniture filled the space, and there was room for both cribs, a seating area, and even a small kitchenette. Willow had protested the expense, but Phoenix had simply said, "There, my children too." Currently, Willow was napping on the plush sofa, exhausted after another sleepless night with the twins. Her auburn hair was spread across the throw pillow Phoenix had brought from his penthouse, one that still carried the faint scent of her perfume from 6 years ago. Phoenix sat beside Sophia's crib, watching his daughter sleep. She was gaining weight steadily, her cheeks fuller now, her movements stronger. The neonatologist had said both babies were developing beautifully for their gestational age. Gabriel was already trying to focus on faces, and Sophia had grasped Phoenix's finger with surprising strength yesterday. "You're going to be trouble, aren't you?" he whispered to his sleeping daughter. "Just like your mother." "I heard that," came Willow's sleepy voice from the sofa. Phoenix looked over to find her eyes open, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Her hair was mussed from sleep, and she was wearing one of the soft cashmere sweaters he'd had delivered, forest green that made her eyes look like emeralds. "How long have you been awake?" he asked. "A few minutes." She sat up slowly, stretching. "You were humming. That song you used to play on guitar." Phoenix felt heat creep up his neck. "I didn't realize you could hear me." "I've always been able to hear you," Willow said softly, "even when you thought you were being quiet." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning. During their relationship, Willow had often teased him about how he'd hum unconsciously when he was content, how she could tell his mood by the songs he chose. Gabriel stirred in his crib, making the soft, mewling sounds that usually preceded full-fledged crying. Willow started to rise, but Phoenix was already moving. "I've got him," he said, carefully lifting his son. Gabriel settled immediately against Phoenix's chest, his tiny fist curling into the fabric of Phoenix's shirt. "He likes you," Willow observed, and there was wonder in her voice. "Both of them do. It's like they know." "They know I'm their father," Phoenix finished. "Children have instincts about these things." "Or maybe they know you love them," Willow said quietly. Phoenix met her eyes over Gabriel's dark head. "I fell in love with them the moment I saw them, and I've been in love with their mother for 6 years." Willow's breath caught, but before she could respond, a knock came at the door. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the twins' neonatologist, entered with her usual warm smile. "Good morning, family," she said, then paused. "I hope you don't mind me saying that. It's just, you three look so natural together." Phoenix and Willow exchanged glances. They hadn't explicitly discussed what to tell the medical staff about their relationship, but somehow they'd fallen into a rhythm that felt like the family they could have been. "How are our little fighters today?" Dr. Vasquez asked, checking her tablet. "Sophia slept for 4 hours straight last night," Willow reported. "And Gabriel's been eating every 3 hours like clockwork." "Excellent." Dr. Vasquez moved to examine Sophia first, her hands gentle and sure. "Her weight gain is impressive. Another week or two, and we might be able to discuss taking her home." Home. The word hit Phoenix like a punch to the chest. Where was home for them? Willow lived in a modest apartment across town. He'd looked up the address, driven by it twice. The building was safe but small, clearly chosen for affordability rather than comfort. There was no way it was suitable for 2 growing babies and a woman with a heart condition. "What about Gabriel?" Phoenix asked. "He's progressing beautifully as well. Premature babies often face challenges with feeding and breathing, but these two are exceeding every expectation." Dr. Vasquez smiled. "You've done an amazing job, Willow, and having Daddy here seems to be making all the difference." After Dr. Vasquez left, Phoenix and Willow fell back into their established routine. Phoenix changed Gabriel's diaper. Something that still amazed him, how natural it felt, while Willow prepared bottles. They worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other with an ease that spoke of deeper connection. "Can I ask you something?" Willow said as they settled into feeding the twins. "Anything. What did you mean when you said you searched for me for 2 years? Phoenix looked down at Sophia, who was drinking her bottle with a determined focus. She approached everything with, "I meant exactly that. I hired 3 different private investigation firms. I checked every hospital, every music program, every orchestra from here to New York. I had people checking rental applications, job applications, anything with your name on it." Willow stared at him. "For 2 years. Until my lawyer finally convinced me I was bordering on stalking and could face legal consequences," Phoenix admitted. "But even then, I never stopped hoping you'd come back. I kept your apartment lease current for 3 years, just in case." "Phoenix." Willow's voice was thick with emotion. "I know it sounds obsessive. Maybe it was. But you have to understand. You didn't just leave me, Willow. You vanished. No explanation, no goodbye, nothing. One day you were there, and the next it was like you'd never existed. Except I could still smell your perfume on my pillows and hear your laugh in my dreams." Gabriel had finished his bottle and was making sleepy sounds. Phoenix lifted him to his shoulder, rubbing his back in gentle circles the way the nurses had shown him. "I left my number with every major hospital in the state," he continued. "I told them if a woman named Willow Grace ever came in, especially if she was pregnant or had children, to call me immediately. I guess Willow Sterling never triggered their system." "You really did all that?" Willow whispered. "I would have done anything to find you. I would have searched forever." Phoenix's voice was steady, certain. "I'm never letting you disappear again." "Phoenix, my heart condition, is manageable with proper care and support, Phoenix interrupted. I've already consulted with the best cardiologists in the country, Dr. William Chen at Seattle Heart Institute, Dr. Sarah Martinez at Cedars-Sinai, Dr. James Morrison at Mayo Clinic. They all agree that with the right treatment plan and lifestyle adjustments, you can live a completely normal life. Willow stared at him. You've been researching my condition. I've been researching everything about postpartum cardiomyopathy since the day you told me about it. I know the symptoms, the treatments, the long-term prognosis. I know that stress and exhaustion make it worse, and that proper support and care can actually help your heart muscle recover. That must have been expensive, those consultations. Money is just a tool, Willow. It's meaningless unless you can use it to protect the people you love. Phoenix shifted Gabriel to his other shoulder, marveling at how right it felt to hold his son. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Let me use it to take care of you and our children. Sophia had finished eating and was looking up at Willow with bright, alert eyes. Willow lifted her to her shoulder, pressing a soft kiss to the baby's forehead. I don't know how to do this, Willow admitted quietly. 6 years ago, I thought I was protecting you by leaving. Now I don't know what the right choice is. The right choice is letting me be their father, Phoenix said firmly. The right choice is letting me take care of you, the way I should have been doing all along. And what about us? Willow asked, her voice barely audible. What about this? She gestured between them, at the electric tension that seemed to fill every space they shared. Phoenix was quiet for a long moment, studying her face, even exhausted and worried, even dealing with a serious health condition while raising 2 babies alone. She was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. But more than that, she was the missing piece of his soul. I love you, he said simply. I've loved you for 6 years, through every day of not knowing where you were or if you were safe. I love you more now. Seeing what an incredible mother you are, seeing how you've sacrificed everything for our children. And if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Tears spilled down Willow's cheeks. Phoenix, you don't have to say anything right now, he said gently. Just don't disappear again. Give us a chance to figure this out together. Outside the window, Seattle glittered in the afternoon sun, the Space Needle rising toward a sky full of possibilities. Inside the hospital room, 2 people who had never stopped loving each other held their children and began to believe that sometimes love really could conquer everything, even 6 years of separation and broken hearts. Chapter 4. Rebuilding Trust. 2 weeks had passed since that first conversation in the music therapy room, and Phoenix had established a routine that centered entirely around his newfound family. Every morning at 7, he arrived at the hospital with fresh coffee for Willow, her favorite hazelnut blend from the small cafe where they'd had their first date 6 years ago. He'd had to call 8 different coffee shops before finding one that remembered her order. This morning was no different, except that today marked a milestone. Both Sophia and Gabriel were finally healthy enough to be discharged. Phoenix found Willow in the nursery, carefully packing the few belongings they'd accumulated during their stay. She moved slowly, and he noticed the way she pressed her hand to her chest between tasks, a gesture he'd learned meant her heart was acting up. Sit down, he said gently, setting the coffee on the nearby table and moving to take over the packing. Let me finish this. I can do it, Willow protested, but Phoenix could hear the breathlessness in her voice. I know you can. You've been doing everything alone for 6 months. Phoenix continued folding tiny clothes with the same precision he brought to business negotiations. But you don't have to anymore. Willow sank into the comfortable chair Phoenix had insisted the hospital provide, watching as he carefully organized their belongings. His large hands were surprisingly gentle with the delicate baby clothes, and she found herself remembering how those same hands used to trace patterns on her skin. how they'd trembled the first time he'd told her he loved her. "Phoenix," she said, quietly, "we need to talk about what happens next." He paused in his folding, not looking at her. "I know. My apartment, it's not big enough for all of this equipment. The cribs, the monitors, all the medical supplies, Dr. Vasquez said we need to have on hand." Willow's voice was carefully neutral, but Phoenix could hear the worry underneath. "And with my condition, climbing 3 flights of stairs, multiple times a day—" "You're not going back to that apartment," Phoenix said firmly. "Excuse me?" Phoenix finally looked at her, his dark eyes intense. "I've been looking at houses, places with everything on one level, close to the hospital, with enough space for the twins to grow. I found one yesterday that's perfect." "Phoenix, I can't afford, it's not for sale," he interrupted. "I bought it outright. Cash offer closed yesterday. We can move in today if you want." Willow stared at him, coffee forgotten in her hands. "You bought a house? Without telling me?" "I bought us a home," Phoenix corrected. "Separate bedrooms, if that's what you want. No pressure, no expectations, just a safe, comfortable place for you and our children." "I can't let you do that." "Why not?" Phoenix resumed packing, his movements sharp with frustration. "Because of your pride? Because you're afraid of what it means? Or because you still don't trust me?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken accusations and old wounds. Willow set down her coffee with shaking hands. "It's not about trust," she said quietly, "isn't it?" Phoenix turned to face her fully. "You spent 6 years believing I would choose another woman over you, based on one overheard conversation. You had our children and named them with your fake last name instead of mine. You've been living in poverty, working yourself to exhaustion, dealing with a serious heart condition alone, all because you couldn't trust that I loved you enough to stand by you." Each word hit Willow like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. "You don't understand. Then help me understand," Phoenix said, his voice softer now. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Help me understand why the woman I was planning to propose to could believe I was so shallow, so uncommitted, that an unwanted pregnancy would send me running." Willow's breath caught. "You were going to propose?" Phoenix reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Willow's hands flew to her mouth as he opened it, revealing a stunning vintage ring. An emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller emeralds, set in platinum. "I bought this 3 days before you left," Phoenix said quietly. "I had dinner reservations at Canlis, overlooking the Sound. I was going to tell you that you were my forever, that I wanted to build a life with you." Tears streamed down Willow's face. "Phoenix!" "Instead, I came home to an empty apartment and a note." His voice cracked slightly. "I kept this ring for 2 years, hoping you'd come back. When I finally accepted you weren't returning, I put it in my safe. But I never returned it, never considered giving it to anyone else. Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I want you to understand that what we had wasn't casual. You were my future, Willow. You still are, if you'll let me prove it." Gabriel chose that moment to wake up, his soft cries interrupting the intensity of the moment. Phoenix immediately stood, going to the crib and lifting his son with practiced ease. "Hey, buddy," he murmured, and Gabriel's cries quieted instantly. "Are you ready to see your new home?" Willow watched them together, her heart aching with love and fear in equal measure. Phoenix had taken to fatherhood like he'd been born for, it intuitive and natural in a way that amazed everyone who saw them together. The nurses had started referring to him as the baby whisperer, because both twins seemed to calm instantly in his arms. "What's the house like?" she asked quietly. Phoenix looked up from Gabriel, hope flickering in his eyes. 4 bedrooms, all. On one level, hardwood floors, big windows, a kitchen with an island where we can put high chairs when they're older. There's a music room, south-facing, perfect acoustics. I thought maybe you'd want to start playing again. And if I say no? If I take the babies and go back to my apartment? Then I'll sell the house, Phoenix said without hesitation. And I'll buy the apartment building you live in and make sure it has the best elevator in Seattle. I'll hire nurses to help you with the stairs and the babies. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure you and our children are safe and cared for. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. Phoenix shifted Gabriel to his shoulder. You want to know if I'll fight you for custody? If I'll use my money and lawyers to take them away from you? Willow nodded, unable to speak. Never, Phoenix said fiercely. They need their mother. They need you healthy and happy and present. In their lives, I would never do anything to jeopardize that, but you want to be part of their lives. I want to be part of all your lives, Phoenix corrected. Not just as their father, but as, I don't know what to call it, your partner, your family, the person who loves you and wants to take care of you. Sophia began to stir in her crib, making the small sounds that meant she'd be awake and hungry soon. Willow moved to get her, but Phoenix was faster, somehow managing to juggle both babies with an ease that should have been impossible for someone who'd only known about them for 2 weeks. How do you do that? Willow asked, genuinely amazed. Practice, Phoenix said with a slight smile, and desperation. I have 6 years of daddy duty to make up for. A knock at the door interrupted them, and Dr. Vasquez entered with a smile. We ready for the big departure? I think so, Willow said, though uncertainty colored her voice. Actually, Phoenix said, we have one more thing to discuss. Dr. Vasquez, could you explain to Willow what kind of support system would be ideal for someone with her condition who's caring for twin infants? Dr. Vasquez looked between them, clearly sensing the undercurrents of tension. Well, ideally, postpartum cardiomyopathy patients should avoid excessive stress and physical strain. Having help with night feedings, household tasks, and childcare is crucial for recovery. The support of a partner or family member can significantly improve outcomes. And living alone in a third-floor walk-up apartment while working full-time? Phoenix asked. Dr. Vasquez winced. Definitely not ideal. In fact, I'd strongly recommend against it. Phoenix looked at Willow meaningfully. So, medically speaking, accepting help isn't just pride. It's necessary for your health and the baby's well-being. Willow felt the last of her resistance crumbling, not because of Phoenix's arguments or the doctor's recommendations, but because of the way he held their children like they were the most precious things in the world. Because of the coffee he brought her every morning, the way he'd learned their feeding schedule by heart, the gentle way he sang to them when they were fussy. Because despite everything that had happened between them, despite 6 years of separation, and fear and misunderstanding, she still loved him with every beat of her damaged heart. Okay, she whispered. Okay, what? Phoenix asked, hardly daring to hope. Okay, let's go see this house you bought us. The smile that spread across Phoenix's face was brighter than the Seattle sun streaming through the hospital windows. Let's take our babies home. Chapter 5. The Truth Unveiled. The house was everything Phoenix had promised and more. As their car, a brand new SUV with the highest safety ratings and infant car seat bases already installed, pulled into the circular driveway, Willow felt her breath catch. The craftsman-style home was beautiful, but not ostentatious, with warm wood siding, large windows, and a wraparound porch that spoke of family gatherings and lazy Sunday mornings. Phoenix, she whispered, staring at the home he'd chosen for them. It's perfect. The interior was even more stunning. Hardwood floors gleamed in the afternoon sunlight, and the open floor plan created a sense of spaciousness without sacrificing coziness. The nursery was already set up with matching cribs, a comfortable rocking chair positioned by the window, and a changing station that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. But it was the music room that made Willow's eyes fill with tears. Phoenix had somehow managed to find her grandmother's piano, the one she'd been forced to sell 3 years ago when money was tight. It sat in the center of the room, perfectly tuned and polished to a gleaming finish. "How did you—" she started to ask, but Phoenix just smiled. "I told you, I have good investigators. The family who bought it was happy to sell it back when they learned the story." He shifted Gabriel in his arms, the baby having been fussy during the car ride. "I thought maybe someday you could teach Sophia to play, and Gabriel looks like he might have an ear for music too." Their first week in the house established a rhythm that felt both foreign and completely natural. Phoenix had arranged for a night nurse to help with feedings so Willow could get proper rest, but he insisted on taking the midnight and 3 a.m. shifts himself. "You need sleep to heal," he'd argued when Willow protested, "and I need to bond with my children." Watching him during those quiet night hours, Willow felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. Phoenix approached fatherhood with the same intensity and dedication he brought to everything else, but there was a tenderness there she'd never seen before. He'd spend hours just watching the babies sleep, memorizing their faces, whispering stories about the future he envisioned for them. Everything changed on their 8th night in the house. Willow woke to the sound of crying. Not the usual hunger cries she'd learned to distinguish, but something sharper, more distressed. She found Phoenix in the nursery, pacing with Sophia, his face tight with worry. "She's been crying for 20 minutes, he said without preamble. "Nothing's working. She doesn't want food. She's not wet, but she feels warm." Willow took their daughter, and her heart immediately kicked into overdrive. Sophia was indeed warm, too warm, and her breathing seemed labored. "Call Dr. Vasquez," Willow said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "Something's wrong." The next few hours blurred together in a haze of emergency room visits, tests, and worried consultations. Sophia had developed a respiratory infection, common in premature babies, but potentially serious. She needed to be hospitalized for monitoring and IV antibiotics. Phoenix and Willow sat in the pediatric ICU waiting room while Sophia underwent treatment. Gabriel was with them, sleeping peacefully, in his carrier, blissfully unaware that his twin sister was fighting for her health just yards away. "This is my fault," Willow whispered, her voice breaking. "I should have noticed sooner. I should have—" "Stop," Phoenix said firmly, pulling her into his arms. "This isn't anyone's fault. Dr. Vasquez said these infections can come on suddenly. You caught it quickly, and she's getting the best possible care. What if she doesn't get better? What if—" "She will," Phoenix said fiercely. "She's a fighter, just like her mother." When the nurse finally came to tell them Sophia was stable and they could see her, Phoenix and Willow rushed to her bedside. Their tiny daughter looked so small, surrounded by monitors and tubes, but her color was better, and her breathing seemed easier. "Can I hold her?" Phoenix asked the nurse. "For a few minutes. Be careful of the IV." Phoenix lifted Sophia with infinite care, settling into the bedside chair. Immediately, her vital signs improved on the monitors. Her heart rate steadied, her oxygen levels increased. "That's remarkable," the nurse said. "Babies usually respond this way to their parents. The medical staff has been wondering about paternity since you're not listed on any paperwork, but seeing this—" she smiled. "There's no question you're her father." It was then that Dr. Sarah Chen, the pediatric cardiologist Phoenix had consulted about Willow's condition, entered the room. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have Sophia's blood work back, and there's something interesting." "Is she going to be okay?" Willow asked immediately. "The infection is responding well to antibiotics," Dr. Chen assured them. "But when we ran her routine blood panel, we noticed something. Mr. Maverick, you mentioned you're AB negative when we discussed possible blood donation." "Yes," Phoenix answered. "Sophia is also AB negative, extremely rare. Combined with her distinctive facial features and her obvious recognition of you." Dr. Chen smiled. I don't think anyone doubts the biological relationship here. The room fell silent, except for the soft beeping of monitors. Phoenix looked down at his daughter in his arms, then up at Willow, whose face had gone completely white. "You tested them?" Willow asked, her voice barely audible. "It's standard protocol for all blood work," Dr. Chen explained. "But I wanted to tell you personally because—" She hesitated. "Because the paperwork listed you as the mother and Mr. Maverick as the father, but the birth certificates show no father listed. I thought there might be some confusion." After Dr. Chen left, Phoenix and Willow sat in stunned silence. Gabriel was still sleeping peacefully, but Sophia had awakened in Phoenix's arms and was looking up at him with those serious dark eyes that were unmistakably his own. "You never doubted it, did you?" Willow asked finally. "Never," Phoenix said without hesitation. "The moment I saw them, I knew. They're mine. Ours. But now it's official. Legal. DNA confirmed." "Does that change anything for you?" Phoenix asked. Carefully, Willow studied his face, seeing the vulnerability there despite his attempts to hide it. "I don't know. Part of me thought, maybe if there was any doubt, it would be easier to walk away again, to convince myself you didn't really need us. And now? Now I have to face the truth I've been avoiding for 6 years. Willow's voice was steady now, stronger. "You really did love me. You really would have chosen me and our baby over everything else." "I still would," Phoenix said simply. "Every day, every choice. It's you and them. There's nothing else that matters." Sophia made a soft sound, her tiny hand wrapping around Phoenix's finger with surprising strength. The simple gesture seemed to unlock something in Willow, and tears began flowing down her cheeks, not tears of sadness or fear, but of relief. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry I didn't trust us. I'm sorry I robbed you of 6 months of their lives. I'm sorry I was so scared of being hurt that I hurt all of us instead." Phoenix carefully shifted Sophia so he could reach for Willow's hand. "We can't change the past, but we can choose our future. I want a future with you, Willow, not just because of the babies, but because I love you. I've never stopped loving you. Even after everything I put us through, especially after everything we've been through," Phoenix corrected. "You left because you loved me enough to set me free. You raised our children alone because you thought it was best for them. You've made every choice out of love, even when it cost you everything." Through the hospital window, dawn was breaking over Seattle, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the PICU, surrounded by the soft sounds of medical equipment and the sleeping forms of other tiny fighters, Phoenix and Willow finally allowed themselves to believe in second chances. "What happens now?" Willow asked. Phoenix looked down at Sophia, who had fallen asleep in his arms, then over at Gabriel, still peaceful in his carrier. "Now we take our daughter home when she's ready. We finish healing, all of us, and we build the family we should have had from the beginning. Together?" "Together," Phoenix confirmed, and when he leaned over to kiss her forehead, Willow felt the last of her walls finally crumble. The truth had been unveiled not just in DNA results and medical charts, but in the quiet moments of shared worry and mutual support. They were a family, broken and reassembled, but stronger for having been tested, and for the first time in 6 years, Willow allowed herself to hope for forever. Chapter 6. Second Chances. 3 days after Sophia's discharge from the hospital, their house had transformed into something that felt like home. Phoenix had taken indefinite leave from his company, delegating everything to his trusted team, so he could focus entirely on his family. The twins were thriving, and Sophia had completely recovered from her infection. Willow stood in the kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through the large windows as she prepared bottles for the twins. Breakfast feeding. She wore one of Phoenix's old Columbia University t-shirts. She'd found it in the laundry and put it on without thinking, only realizing later how intimate the gesture was. "You're wearing my shirt," Phoenix said softly from the doorway. Willow looked down, color flooding her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I didn't think—" "Don't apologize," Phoenix interrupted, moving closer. "I like seeing you in my clothes." The air between them suddenly felt charged. Phoenix reached around her to get coffee mugs from the cabinet, his chest brushing against her back, and Willow's breath caught. "Phoenix," she whispered. "I know," he said quietly, not moving away. "I feel it too." Before either of them could say more, Gabriel's cries echoed from the nursery, breaking the spell. Phoenix stepped back, his dark eyes intense as they searched her face. "I'll get him," he said, his voice slightly rough. As Phoenix left to tend to their son, Willow leaned against the counter, her heart racing. The attraction between them had never faded. If anything, seeing Phoenix as a father had only intensified her feelings. But attraction was one thing. Rebuilding a relationship after 6 years of separation was another entirely. When Phoenix returned with Gabriel, Sophia was beginning to wake as well, her soft sounds drifting from the nursery monitor. They fell into their established rhythm, Phoenix feeding Gabriel while Willow tended to Sophia, moving around each other with practiced ease. "I have an appointment with Dr. Martinez this afternoon," Willow said as she settled into the nursing chair with Sophia. "My cardiologist wants to check how I'm responding to the new medication." "I'll drive you," Phoenix said immediately. "You don't have to—" "Willow," Phoenix interrupted gently. "When are you going to stop trying to do everything alone?" She looked up at him, seeing the patience in his expression, the unwavering support that had been constant since he'd discovered them at the hospital. "It's a hard habit to break, I know, but we're in this together now. That means doctor's appointments, midnight feedings, diaper changes, all of it." Dr. Martinez's appointment went better than expected. Willow's heart function had actually improved since starting the new treatment regimen, and the doctor attributed much of her progress to reduced stress and proper support. "Having help with the babies is making all the difference," Dr. Martinez told them both. "Your heart muscle is responding well to rest and medication. If this progress continues, we might be able to reduce your medications in a few months." "What about exercise?" Phoenix asked. "She used to run, play tennis." "Light exercise is actually beneficial," Dr. Martinez smiled. "Walking, gentle yoga, swimming when she's ready. Nothing too strenuous, but movement will help strengthen her heart." On the drive home, Phoenix was unusually quiet. When they pulled into their driveway, he didn't immediately get out of the car. "What's wrong?" Willow asked. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right, and that terrifies me," Phoenix admitted. "The babies are healthy. Your heart is improving. We're living together like a real family. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "What do you mean?" Phoenix turned to face her fully. "I mean, I'm waiting for you to decide this is too much, too complicated, too scary. I'm waiting for you to disappear again." Willow felt her chest tighten, but not from her heart condition. "Phoenix, I know it's not fair to put that on you," he continued. "I know you left before, because you thought it was best for everyone. But I can't go through losing you again, Willow. I won't survive it this time." Without thinking, Willow reached across the console and took his hand. "I'm not going anywhere." "How can I know that? How can I trust that when things get hard, when we fight or disagree or face challenges, you won't just run again?" The question hung between them, honest and raw. Willow looked down at their joined hands. Phoenix's so much larger than hers, calloused from years of building his business from nothing. "Because I'm not the same person who left 6 years ago," she said finally. "That woman was terrified of being a burden, of being trapped, of being chosen out of obligation rather than love. But this woman, the one sitting here with you, she's learned that love isn't a trap. It's a choice you make every day, And what choice are you making? Willow met his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the hope he was trying to hide. I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing to fight for our family instead of running from it. Phoenix's hand tightened on hers. Even when it gets difficult. Especially when it gets difficult. Willow's voice grew stronger. I spent 6 years thinking I was protecting you by staying away. But all I did was rob us of time. We can never get back. I'm done being afraid, Phoenix. I'm done making decisions based on fear instead of love. That evening, after the twins were settled for the night, Phoenix found Willow in the music room, sitting at her grandmother's piano. Her fingers moved across the keys, playing a melody he recognized, the piece she'd been working on when they first met, the one she'd never finished. You remember it, she said without looking up. I remember everything about you, Phoenix replied, settling beside her on the piano bench. Play it for me. I never finished it. Then finish it now. Willow's fingers hesitated on the keys. I don't know how it ends. Yes, you do, Phoenix said softly. You've always known. You just weren't ready to play it. Slowly, Willow began again, letting the melody flow through her fingers. The piece was hauntingly beautiful, full of longing and loss, but as she continued, new themes emerged, hope, joy, love rediscovered. When she reached the ending, her hands moved instinctively, creating a resolution that was both satisfying and surprising. It's beautiful, Phoenix whispered when the last notes faded. It's us, Willow said, turning to face him. All of it. The separation, the pain, the fear, but also the love that never died, and the hope for what we could be. They were sitting, so close now that Willow could count the flecks of gold in Phoenix's dark eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. When he lifted his hand to cup her cheek, she leaned into the touch. I love you, he said, the words carrying 6 years of longing. I love you so much it physically hurts sometimes. I love you too, Willow whispered. I never stopped. Even when I convinced myself I had to let you go, my heart knew the truth. When Phoenix kissed her, it was nothing like their first kiss, 6 years ago. That had been passionate but uncertain, full of new discovery. This kiss carried the weight of loss and the joy of reunion, the promise of second chances, and the knowledge of how precious love truly was. Willow's arms wound around Phoenix's neck, pulling him closer, and he groaned against her lips. Every cell in his body was alive with wanting her, but underneath the desire was something deeper. Gratitude, relief, the soul-deep satisfaction of finally coming home. Are you sure? He whispered against her mouth. We don't have to rush anything. I'm sure, Willow said, her voice steady and certain. I'm sure about you, about us, about this family we're building. I'm done wasting time on fear. Phoenix kissed her again, deeper this time, and Willow felt herself melting against him. This was what she'd been missing, what no amount of independence or self-protection could replace, the feeling of being completely known and completely loved. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Phoenix rested his forehead against hers. I want to do this right, he said. Court you properly, give you the romance you deserve. Willow smiled, the first truly carefree smile he'd seen from her since their reunion. Phoenix, Maverick, we have twin babies together. I think we're past the traditional courtship phase. Then what phase are we in? The forever phase, Willow said simply. If you'll have me. Phoenix's answer was another kiss, this one full of promise and possibility, while upstairs their children slept peacefully, dreaming of a future full of love. Chapter 7. The Perfect Proposal. 6 months had passed since that pivotal night at the piano, and their life together had blossomed into something more beautiful than either Phoenix or Willow had dared to dream. The twins were now over a year old, walking unsteadily around the house and filling every room with laughter and chaos. Sophia had inherited her mother's musical ear and would clap enthusiastically whenever Willow played piano, while Gabriel showed his father's determined streak, attempting to climb everything in sight. Willow's heart condition had improved dramatically with proper treatment and the absence of crushing stress. She'd even started performing again, small, intimate, concerts at local venues, with Phoenix and the twins always in the front row. Her confidence had returned, along with her health, and Phoenix fell in love with her all over again every time he watched her command a stage. This particular evening, Phoenix was more nervous than he'd been since the day he'd walked into that hospital and discovered his children. He'd been planning this moment for weeks, coordinating with venues, musicians, and babysitters. Everything had to be perfect because Willow deserved perfection after everything they'd been through. "Are you sure Marcus and Elena can handle both of them?" Willow asked for the third time as she adjusted her dress, a flowing emerald green that made her eyes sparkle like jewels. "They raised 5 kids. I think they can manage our 2 for a few hours," Phoenix replied, checking his watch. The hired string quartet would be setting up at Benaroya Hall right about now, and the private dinner he'd arranged in the same restaurant where they'd had their first date should be ready. But what if Sophia has another nightmare? She only calms. "Down when I sing to her." Phoenix stopped adjusting his tie and moved to where Willow stood in front of their bedroom mirror, slipping his arms around her waist from behind. "They'll be fine. Marcus has your number, Dr. Vasquez's number, and the number for every pediatrician in Seattle. This is our night, love." Willow leaned back against his chest, studying their reflection. They looked like a real couple. Not 2 people tentatively trying to rebuild something broken, but partners who belonged together. Phoenix was wearing the same black suit he'd worn to their first charity gala together, and Willow had chosen this dress specifically because Phoenix had once told her green was his favorite color on her. "Where are we going?" she asked, though she'd been asking the same question for days. "It's a surprise," Phoenix said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Trust me." The drive through Seattle was filled with comfortable conversation about the twins, Willow's upcoming concert series, and Phoenix's plans to expand his music therapy initiative. But underneath the easy chat, Phoenix could feel anticipation building. The ring, the same ring he'd bought 6 years ago, was in his jacket pocket. When they pulled up to Canlis, Willow turned to him with wide eyes. "Phoenix, this is where you wanted to take me before everything went wrong," Phoenix finished. "I wanted to bring us back to where we should have been." The restaurant was exactly as elegant as Phoenix remembered, but what made Willow gasp was that their usual table by the window was the only one occupied in the entire restaurant. "You rented out the whole place," she whispered. "I wanted tonight to be just about us. Dinner was perfect, courses that tasted like poetry, wine that complemented every bite, and conversation that flowed easily. They talked about the twins, dreams for the future and memories that no longer hurt to revisit. "I have something for you," Phoenix said as they finished dessert. "Phoenix, you've already given me so much." "Not a gift," he interrupted, pulling out an envelope. "Something I wrote for you 6 years ago." Willow's breath caught as she recognized his handwriting on the cream-colored paper. "The poem, the one you mentioned at the hospital." "I wrote it the night before I was going to propose to you," Phoenix said quietly. "I never got the chance to share it, but I memorized every word. I've been carrying it with me ever since." With trembling fingers, Willow unfolded the paper and began to read. "In the silence between musical notes, I found the rhythm of your heart. In the space between your smiles, I discovered what home means. You are the melody I never knew I was missing, the harmony that makes my soul complete. If love is a symphony, then you are my masterpiece, complex, beautiful, worthy of a lifetime study. I want to learn every movement of your heart, conduct the orchestra of our dreams, and create with you a love song that will echo through eternity. Tears were streaming down Willow's face by the time she finished reading. "Phoenix, it's beautiful." "You're beautiful," he said, standing from his chair. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known, not just because of how you look, but because of who you are. Your strength, your talent, your capacity for love. You take my breath away every single day." Phoenix moved around the table and dropped to one knee beside her chair, pulling out the velvet box he'd been carrying for 6 years. "Willow Grace, you are my heart, my music, my everything. You gave me the most precious gifts imaginable, our children and your love. I want to spend the rest of my life proving worthy of both." Willow's hands flew to her mouth as he opened the box, revealing the stunning emerald and diamond ring that caught the restaurant's soft lighting and threw it back in brilliant sparkles. "I bought this ring 6 years ago because I knew then what I know now, that I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to raise our children together, make music together, grow old together. I want to love you through every joy and every challenge, every triumph and every fear." Phoenix's voice grew stronger, more certain. "Willow, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my forever?" The restaurant fell completely silent, except for the distant sound of waves against the shore below. Willow looked down at the man she'd loved through separation and misunderstanding, through heartbreak and healing, through every twist their story had taken. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Phoenix, yes." The ring slid onto her finger, as if it had been waiting there for 6 years, which in a way it had. Phoenix stood and lifted her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed and cried simultaneously. "I love you," she said against his lips as he kissed her. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Don't be scared," Phoenix murmured. "We're going to have the most beautiful life together." When they finally broke apart, Phoenix led her to the restaurant's windows overlooking the Sound. In the distance, a string quartet began playing on the outdoor terrace, the same musicians from the charity gala where they'd first met, playing the same piece that had been their song. "You arranged this too?" Willow asked, amazed. "I wanted everything to be perfect," Phoenix admitted. "I wanted to give you the proposal you deserved 6 years ago, the one that celebrates our love instead of being overshadowed by fear and misunderstanding." They danced on the empty restaurant floor to music that drifted through the open windows, Willow's engagement ring catching the light with every movement. Other couples would have danced here tonight, but Phoenix had wanted this space, this moment, this entire evening to belong only to them. "When?" Willow asked as they swayed together. "When what? When do you want to get married?" Phoenix smiled, the expression transforming his entire face. "Tomorrow, next week, next month, whenever you're ready. I've been ready for 6 years." "What? About a big wedding? Your business associates, my musician friends." "I don't need a big wedding," Phoenix said firmly. "I need you. I need our children. I need the promise that we'll never let fear or pride come between us again." Willow looked up at him, seeing forever in his dark eyes. "Then let's not wait. Let's get married as soon as possible." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Willow said, her voice steady and certain. "I'm sure about you, about us, about this ring on my finger and the family we're building. I'm done waiting for perfect timing or perfect circumstances. What we have is perfect enough." As the string quartet played their song under the Seattle stars, Phoenix and Willow danced and planned and dreamed about the wedding that would finally make them official. Not just as co-parents or partners, but as husband and wife, bound together by love that had survived everything life could throw at them. Chapter 8. Wedding of Dreams. 3 weeks later, the gardens of St. Catherine's Children's Hospital had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Phoenix and Willow had chosen this location for its meaning. This was where their love story had begun its second chapter. White roses and baby's breath created romantic archways throughout the garden, while string lights hung between the trees, like captured stars. Only 50 guests were invited, family, close friends, and the hospital staff who had become like family during the twins' early days. In the bridal preparation room, Willow stood before a full-length mirror in a custom ivory silk dress with delicate lace sleeves. Her grandmother's pearl necklace adorned her throat, and her hair was swept up in an elegant chignon with small, white roses. "You look like a princess," said Elena, Marcus's wife, who was serving as matron of honor. "Phoenix isn't going to be able to speak when he sees you." A soft knock interrupted them, and Dr. Vasquez peered in with Sophia and Gabriel, dressed in matching outfits. Sophia in a miniature ivory dress with a flower crown, Gabriel in a tiny tuxedo. At 7 months old, they were just beginning to sit up on their own, but they looked adorable in their wedding finery. "Mama, pretty," Sophia declared, reaching up to touch Willow's dress. "Dada?" Gabriel asked, looking around for Phoenix. "Dada's waiting for us in the garden," Willow said, kneeling carefully to hug both children. "Are you ready to help Mama and Dada get married?" Both twins nodded enthusiastically, though Willow doubted they understood what marriage meant beyond a big party with cake. The music began outside, a string quartet playing Pachelbel's Canon, the same piece that had been playing when Phoenix and Willow first danced together 6 years ago. Elena took charge of the twins while Willow made her final preparations. "Ready?" Elena asked. Willow took a deep breath, looking once more in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was radiant, confident, ready to pledge her life to the man she'd loved through separation and reunion, heartbreak and healing. "I'm ready." The garden pathway was lined with rose petals and led to an archway covered in white flowers where Phoenix stood waiting. The moment Willow appeared, Phoenix's breath caught audibly. She was ethereally beautiful, moving toward him, like a dream made real. But what made Phoenix's eyes fill with tears was the sight of their children. Sophia walked carefully ahead of her mother, scattering flower petals with serious concentration, while Gabriel toddled beside Elena, waving at all the guests with uncontainable joy. When Willow reached the altar, Phoenix stepped forward to take her hands. "You're the most beautiful woman in the world," he whispered. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Willow replied, admiring how devastatingly handsome he looked in his charcoal-gray tuxedo. The ceremony was officiated by Phoenix's college roommate, who had become a minister specifically so he could perform. This wedding, his words were personal and heartfelt, speaking about second chances, the power of love to overcome any obstacle, and the family that Phoenix and Willow had created together. "Marriage isn't just about the love between two people," he said to the gathered friends and family. "It's about choosing that love every day, especially when it's difficult. Phoenix and Willow have already proven that their love can survive years of separation, misunderstandings, and life's unexpected challenges. Today, they're promising to face whatever comes next together." When it came time for vows, Phoenix went first. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket, the same poem he'd written 6 years ago, but with new verses added. "Willow," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "6 years ago, I wrote you a poem about love being a symphony. Today, I want to add to that song. You didn't just give me your love. You gave me our children, our family, our future. You taught me that real love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other through every imperfect moment." Phoenix's voice grew stronger. "I promise to love you through every season of our lives. I promise to support your dreams, protect your heart, and share in raising our children with patience and joy. I promise to choose you every day, in every way, for the rest of my life." Willow's vows were equally heartfelt. "Phoenix, when I left 6 years ago, I thought I was protecting you from a complicated life. What I didn't understand then was that love isn't meant to be simple. It's meant to be worth fighting for. You showed me that love isn't a burden to be carried alone, but a gift to be shared." She looked down at their children, then back to Phoenix. "You gave me the courage to trust again, to hope again, to believe that our love story deserves a happy ending. I promise to never run from our love again. I promise to build our dreams together, to raise our children with wisdom and patience, and to love you more deeply with every passing year." The ring exchange was emotional, with both Phoenix and Willow's hands trembling slightly as they slipped the platinum bands onto each other's fingers. Gabriel chose that moment to escape from Elena and toddle toward the altar, reaching his arms up toward Phoenix. "Dada!" he called out, causing laughter to ripple through the crowd. Phoenix scooped up his son without missing a beat, and the minister smiled. "I think someone wants to be part of this ceremony." "Actually," Phoenix said, looking at Willow, "I have something special planned." He nodded to someone in the crowd, and suddenly the children's choir from the hospital appeared, dressed in white robes. They began singing "All You Need Is Love" by the Beatles, a song Phoenix had discovered was Sophia and Gabriel's favorite because Willow sang it to them every night. But the real surprise came when Sophia and Gabriel were given small instruments, tiny tambourine for Sophia and a small drum for Gabriel. The twins joined in enthusiastically, if not entirely on beat, while the choir sang around them. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden as Phoenix and Willow's children literally helped create the music for their parents' wedding ceremony. "By the power vested in me," the minister said when the song ended, "and with the blessing of these two beautiful children, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Phoenix, you may kiss your bride." The kiss was tender, passionate, and full of promise. When they broke apart, both Phoenix and Willow were crying, tears of joy, relief, and overwhelming love. "Ladies and gentlemen," the minister announced, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Phoenix Maverick and their absolutely adorable family." The reception took place in the hospital's beautifully decorated atrium. The first dance was to "At Last" by Etta James, a song that perfectly captured the feeling of finally getting their happy ending. As they swayed together, Sophia and Gabriel dancing around their feet with the uninhibited joy only children possess, Phoenix and Willow felt the completion of a circle that had begun 6 years earlier. "No regrets?" Phoenix murmured against Willow's ear. "Only one," Willow replied, smiling up at him. "What's that?" "That we waited so long to get here." Phoenix spun her around, her dress floating like a cloud, while their children clapped and their friends cheered. "We're here now," he said. "That's all that matters." The wedding cake was a 3-tier masterpiece decorated with sugar flowers that matched Willow's bouquet. But the real hit was the special cupcakes made just for Sophia and Gabriel. Small, enough for little hands, but decorated to match the wedding theme. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Phoenix and Willow stood together in the garden where it all began, watching their children play with the remaining flower petals. "Ready to start our happily ever after, Mrs. Maverick?" Phoenix asked. "I've been ready for 6 years, Mr. Maverick," Willow replied, and sealed her promise with a kiss that tasted like forever. Chapter 9. Growing Their Legacy. 3 years had passed since their wedding in the hospital garden, and the Maverick family had grown in ways that filled every corner of their lives with joy and purpose. Their house now echoed with the laughter of 3 children, Sophia and Gabriel, now almost 4 years old, and baby Hope, who had arrived 18 months after their wedding. Phoenix stood in his home office, reviewing architectural plans for their third Harmony Healing Center. The music therapy facilities he and Willow had envisioned had become a regional success, with locations in Seattle, Portland, and now plans for San Francisco. "Daddy, Hope is crying again," Sophia announced from the doorway, her dark hair in pigtails, and her serious expression making her look like a miniature version of Willow. "Where's Mommy?" Phoenix asked, saving his work. "Practicing in the music room." She said not to bother her because the record people are coming tomorrow, Sophia explained. Phoenix found Willow working through a complex violin passage. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore one of his old shirts over leggings. Baby Hope sat in her bouncy seat nearby, wide-eyed and entranced by the music. At 15 months old, she was already showing signs of inheriting the family's musical gifts. "The Vivaldi is giving you trouble?" Phoenix asked softly, not wanting to startle Willow out of her concentration. "The second movement," Willow confirmed, lowering her violin. "I keep rushing the tempo. It needs to breathe more, but I'm so used to performing for children now that I forget adult audiences want to savor the pauses." Phoenix moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Play it for me, the way you'd play it for Hope." Willow raised her violin again, but this time she played with the gentleness she'd developed for her children. Slower, more contemplative, allowing each note to resonate fully before moving to the next. The difference was remarkable. "Perfect," Phoenix murmured against her ear. "Your heart knows the right tempo." "The recording executives might disagree," Willow said, but she was smiling as she set down her violin. "The recording executives are lucky to have you. Your first album sold more copies than anyone expected, and the critics are calling you the most emotionally compelling classical musician of your generation." Willow blushed at the praise. Her album, Songs for My Children, a collection of lullabies and classical pieces she'd performed for Sophia, Gabriel, and Hope, had indeed become an unexpected success. What had started as a personal project to document the music she shared with her children had resonated with parents worldwide. "Speaking of the children," Willow said, lifting Hope from her bouncy seat, "where are Sophia and Gabriel?" "Building a fort in the living room, supposedly. Though knowing our son, he's probably trying to engineer some sort of catapult system." They found the twins in the living room, which had been transformed into an elaborate construction zone. Gabriel had indeed been busy with engineering. He'd figured out how to use the couch cushions as ramps for his toy cars, while Sophia had created what appeared to be a doll orchestra with her stuffed animals arranged in careful formation. "Daddy, look!" Gabriel called out, sending a car flying off his makeshift ramp. "I made it go super fast." "That's amazing, buddy," Phoenix said, settling on the floor beside his son. "Did you measure the angle of the ramp?" "The what?" Gabriel asked, though. His eyes lit up with interest. "The angle. How steep you make the ramp changes how fast the car goes," Phoenix explained, adjusting the cushion slightly. "Try it now." While Phoenix worked with Gabriel on basic physics principles disguised as play, Willow sat with Sophia, who was conducting her stuffed animal orchestra with serious concentration. "What are they playing today?" Willow asked. "Beethoven's Fifth," Sophia replied without hesitation. "But Mr. Bear keeps playing too loud, so I had to move him to the back." Willow hid her smile. At not quite 4 years old, Sophia could already identify dozens of classical pieces by ear and had strong opinions about musical interpretation. "Maybe Mr. Bear needs more practice?" Willow suggested diplomatically. "That's what I told him, but he said he knows how to play it better than Beethoven did." The conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Phoenix checked his watch. Marcus and Elena were bringing their youngest over for a playdate, which would give Phoenix and Willow a chance to review the plans for the new Harmony Centers. The afternoon flew by in the comfortable chaos of family life. The children played while the adults spread architectural plans across the dining room table, discussing everything from soundproofing requirements to the optimal number of therapy rooms per facility. The Chicago location could serve 3 major hospital systems, Elena pointed out, tracing routes on the map, and there's already interest from the Children's Hospital in Boston. "The funding is solid," Marcus added. "Between Phoenix's investment and the grants we've secured, we can break ground on both locations this fall." What about staffing? Willow asked. We'll need qualified music therapists, and there's already a shortage in the field. That's where your scholarship program comes in, Phoenix replied, pulling out another folder. We've endowed music therapy programs at 5 universities. The first graduates should be ready to join us next year. The scholarship program had been Willow's idea, using a portion of the proceeds from her album sales and Phoenix's business profits to train the next generation of music therapists. It was named the Sophia and Gabriel Maverick Foundation for Musical Healing, ensuring their children would grow up knowing their names were associated with helping others. As evening approached and Marcus and Elena gathered their children to leave, Phoenix and Willow found themselves alone with their 3 little ones. Bath time was a production that required both parents. Sophia was old enough to help wash Gabriel, while Phoenix managed Hope's infant bath and Willow supervised everything with the efficiency of a seasoned general. "Daddy, will you tell us the story about how you and Mommy met?" Sophia asked, as they tucked the twins into their beds. It had become a favorite bedtime story, heavily edited for young audiences, but capturing the essence of their love story. Phoenix settled into the reading chair, while Willow sat on Gabriel's bed with Hope in her arms. "Once upon a time," Phoenix began, "there was a man who thought he had everything he needed. He had a successful business, a nice apartment, and lots of friends, but he didn't know that his heart was missing something very important. Music," Gabriel chimed in, knowing the story by heart. That's right. His heart was missing music, and then one night at a very fancy party, he heard the most beautiful violin playing he'd ever heard in his life. As Phoenix continued the story, Willow watched their children's faces in the soft lamplight. Sophia's eyes were drooping, but she fought sleep to hear every word. Gabriel was already succumbing, his thumb in his mouth, a habit they hadn't quite broken yet. Hope was content in Willow's arms, making soft baby sounds that seemed to harmonize with Phoenix's storytelling voice. "And then what happened?" Sophia asked sleepily when Phoenix reached the part about the hospital reunion. "Then Daddy discovered that Mommy had given him the most precious gifts in the whole world," Phoenix said, looking at each of his children in turn. 3 beautiful children who filled his heart with more love than he ever imagined possible. "And they lived happily ever after," Gabriel mumbled. "They're still living happily ever after," Willow said softly, "every single day." After the children were asleep, Phoenix and Willow sat together on their back patio. Baby Hope finally settled in her crib upstairs. The Seattle skyline glittered in the distance, but their attention was focused on the family they'd built together. "It did, Dad. You ever imagine this?" Willow asked, curled against Phoenix's side on the outdoor sofa. "When we were young and everything felt so urgent and dramatic. Did you picture quiet evenings like this?" "Never," Phoenix admitted, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I thought love was supposed to be constant intensity, constant passion. I didn't know it could be this peaceful, this right." "We still have passion," Willow pointed out with a smile. "Definitely," Phoenix agreed, his voice dropping to a suggestive rumble. "But now it's deeper, more certain. I know you're not going anywhere, and you know I'm not going anywhere. We can just be." As if to prove his point, they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of their neighborhood and the soft whisper of the baby monitor. Their love story was no longer about dramatic reunions or passionate declarations. It was about this, the quiet moments that built a lifetime together. Chapter 10. When Everything is on the Line. 6 years had passed since Phoenix and Willow's reunion at the hospital, and their love story had become the foundation for a legacy that touched thousands of lives. Their Harmony Healing Centers now operated in 8 cities across the West Coast. Their scholarship program had graduated over 100 music therapists, and Willow's concerts raised significant funds for pediatric music therapy research. But On this crisp autumn morning, as Phoenix drove frantically through Seattle traffic toward the hospital, none of their accomplishments mattered. All that mattered was the woman lying unconscious in the emergency room and the unborn daughter whose life hung in the balance. Willow's fourth pregnancy had been a surprise, a beautiful one that had filled their household with excited anticipation. Sophia, now 6, had immediately begun planning how to teach her new sister to play piano. Gabriel, equally 6 and more practical, had started building a special crib mobile with musical components. 3-year-old Hope had simply declared herself the future baby's best friend forever. Everything had been perfect until this morning, when Willow had collapsed during breakfast, clutching her chest and gasping for breath. Her cardiomyopathy, well managed for years, had been aggravated by the stress pregnancy placed on her heart. Phoenix found Dr. Chen in the cardiac intensive care unit, her expression serious as she reviewed Willow's charts. "How bad is it?" Phoenix asked. "Her heart is struggling with the demands of pregnancy. We're seeing signs of heart failure, and the baby is showing signs of distress. We need to deliver the baby immediately via emergency C-section, but the surgery carries significant risks. For Willow's heart, what are our options? We perform the surgery with our best cardiac and obstetric teams standing by. It's risky, but both mother and baby have good chances with immediate intervention. What does Willow say?" "She's sedated but stable. You're her medical proxy. We need your consent to proceed." Phoenix closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision. "What would you do if this were your wife?" "I'd trust our team to save them." "Both," Dr. Chen replied firmly. "Then do it," Phoenix said without hesitation. "Save my family." The next 6 hours were the longest of Phoenix's life. He called his parents to come stay with the children, then sat vigil in the cardiac surgery waiting room. Sophia, Gabriel, and Hope didn't understand why Mommy had to stay at the hospital, but they knew something was very wrong. Marcus and Elena arrived within the hour, bringing coffee Phoenix couldn't drink and comfort he couldn't accept. How could he find peace when the love of his life was fighting for both her life and their daughters? "She's the strongest woman I know," Elena said softly. "If anyone can survive this, it's Willow." "You don't understand," Phoenix replied, his voice hoarse from holding back tears. "The doctors said her heart might not restart after surgery. I might lose her. I might lose them both." "Then don't," said a small voice from behind him. Phoenix turned to find Sophia standing in the waiting room doorway, still wearing her school uniform. His parents were supposed to keep the children at home, but somehow his eldest daughter had convinced them to bring her here. "Sophia, sweetheart, you shouldn't be here," Phoenix said, kneeling to her level. "Yes, I should," Sophia replied, with the same determination Willow showed when her mind was made up. "Mommy needs music. She always gets better when we play music for her." Before Phoenix could respond, Sophia had pulled out her phone and connected it to a small portable speaker she'd brought in her backpack. The opening notes of Pachelbel's Canon filled the waiting room, the same piece that had been playing when Phoenix and Willow first danced together, the same piece they'd chosen for their wedding processional. "Sophia, listen, Daddy," she insisted. "When Gabriel had nightmares, Mommy played music and he got better. When Hope was sick last month, Mommy sang to her and she got better. Music heals people. Mommy taught me that." Other families in the waiting room had stopped their conversations to listen. Some were crying, whether from the beauty of the music or the obvious love behind it, Phoenix couldn't tell. Then Gabriel appeared, having escaped his grandparents' supervision, carrying his small violin. At 9 years old, he was already remarkably skilled, inheriting both his parents' musical gifts. Without saying a word, he joined in with Sophia's recorded music, his violin harmonizing with the orchestral piece. Soon, Hope arrived too, led by Phoenix's parents who had given up trying to keep the children away. She began humming along, her 5-year-old voice pure and sweet. The waiting room had become a concert hall, filled with the music of Phoenix and Willow's children, expressing their love for their mother in the only way they knew how. And that's when the miracle happened. Dr. Chen appeared in the waiting room doorway, still in surgical scrubs, her face exhausted but smiling. "Phoenix?" He stood immediately, his heart hammering. "How are they?" "Alive," Dr. Chen said simply. "Both alive and stable. It was touch and go. We lost Willow twice during surgery, but somehow her heart found the strength to keep fighting. Your daughter is tiny but perfect, breathing on her own and crying loud enough to wake the entire hospital." Phoenix's knees gave out, and he found himself sitting heavily in the waiting room chair as relief flooded through him. Sophia and Gabriel immediately wrapped their arms around him, while Hope climbed into his lap. "Can we see them?" Sophia asked. "In a little while," Dr. Chen replied. "Your mother is still unconscious, but her heart rhythm is strong and steady. We'll know more in the next 24 hours, but I'm cautiously optimistic." That night, Phoenix sat beside Willow's hospital bed, holding their newest daughter, Liberty Hope Maverick, born at 5 pounds 2 ounces, but with the strongest lungs in the NICU. Sophia, Gabriel, and Hope had finally been convinced to go home with their grandparents, but not before each of them had whispered to their unconscious mother about their new sister. "She's beautiful," Phoenix whispered to Willow, even though she couldn't hear him. "She has your nose and my stubborn chin. Dr. Chen says she's going to be just fine. But we need you to wake up, love. We need you to meet your daughter." As if responding to his voice, Willow's eyelids fluttered. Phoenix held his breath as she slowly opened her eyes, blinking in the soft hospital lighting. "Phoenix?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm here," he said, tears streaming down his face. "We're all here. You did it, Willow. You saved her, our baby." "Perfect," Phoenix said, carefully placing Liberty in Willow's arms. "Absolutely perfect." Willow looked down at their daughter, and despite her weakness, her face transformed with the radiant love that made Phoenix fall for her over and over again. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm your mama." 10 years later, Phoenix stood on the stage of Carnegie Hall, conducting a 100-piece orchestra in a piece Willow had composed called Liberty's Song, a symphony that told the story of their family's journey through love, loss, separation, reunion, and the miracle of new life. In the audience sat hundreds of families whose lives had been touched by the Phoenix and Willow Maverick Foundation for cardiac and musical healing, the research foundation Phoenix had built from their love story, funded by expanding their music therapy centers nationwide and dedicating their lives to saving hearts. As the final notes rang out, Willow joined him on stage with their children. Sophia, now 16 and already accepted to Juilliard. Gabriel, 16 and planning to study both engineering and music composition. Hope, 13 and the most gifted natural musician of them all, and Liberty, 10 years old and healthy as any child could be. This symphony was born from a love that refused to die, Phoenix told the audience, his voice carrying to every corner of the legendary hall. It grew stronger through separation, survived heartbreak, and proved that when two souls are meant to be together, not even death can keep them apart. This is our gift to the world. Proof that love doesn't just heal hearts, it saves them. The entire audience rose in thunderous applause as Willow kissed Phoenix under the bright stage lights, their children surrounding them. Their love story had become a legacy that literally saved lives, the most powerful testament to true love ever written. In the end, they had learned that love wasn't just about the two of them. It was about creating something bigger, something that would outlast them, and touch the world with healing. Their music would play on long after they were gone, carried forward by the thousands of hearts they had helped heal. It was, indeed, the perfect symphony.